to review all of them?
Well, Harvard gets 40,000 applications a year for 2,000. For tennis, I hear from a lot of people. I can only, we joke that I can sprinkle fairy dust. It's, I can help probably around 3 people a year. And by help, I mean if that person is academically suitable for being at Harvard, I can increase his chances of being accepted considerably. I've done it for 40 years. We have a good relationship with admissions. But I have to say no much more than I get to say yes.
But are you able to review all the applications?
Yeah. Well, I will review, well, no, I won't review all the applications because I don't make those decisions. The admissions office makes that decision. We will look, my assistant and I will look at a person's recommendations, scores in high school, test scores. We'll talk to coaches, we'll talk to teachers. We want to know as completely as we can, would this be a successful person experience for this person? We want it to work and be a good fit. Yes, sir.
Given Norway doesn't have this system, I understood that you make tennis videos of the players that you send to the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what is the
That helps.
what is
There's
the standard procedure? I mean,
Great.
if you can't, I mean, maybe not Harvard, but any other university, they won't be able to say what was the level here. How would that person rank with someone who plays in Connecticut or whatever?
Oftentimes, they will look and see your results and compare the results of someone that they do know. So more and more coaches are actually using that to sort of, we call it zero in on an accurate understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Videos, I have to tell you, college coaches do a lot of laughing at videos.
Okay.
By that I mean when they have sound effects and the camera's down between the player's legs and they look like a giant, and you're paying a lot of money for it. That's not important. What coaches would really like to see is you can put your iPhone up on the back of a fence and actually see someone competing. That's great. We don't want it edited because I get videos that look like Pete Sampras. The guy never misses a shot. It's uncanny. Somehow I don't think that's happened that way. And so we'd like to understand the real person that we're getting. And so don't put a lot of money into videos. Don't. Great graphics. We almost laugh at that because
But it is required. I mean, you have to do
it's not required, but
ACT,
yes, you have to do all that, but
and-
the video is not required. It's hugely helpful.
Right.
If I receive,
It'll catch your attention.
it'll
Maybe
catch
not
my
throw it
attention.
into the garbage.
Yes, and the first thing that we talk with, there are probably 50 recruiting services around the world, and they all understand that if they put a person's UTR in the subject line, I know whether to write a polite letter back to that young man and say, I think you need to look at a less competitive school, or whether I should book my next plane flight to go visit him, if he's that good. Yes.
I just wonder how long time will this process take? How long time, or when do you have to start this process?
The college process?
Yeah.
We recommend that players begin taking their SATs or the ACTs by halfway through their junior year.
Mm-hmm.
So if at Harvard we have something called early action, it's an early decision program. We would hope that someone would have all of their tests done by September of the year before they would be entering.
Mm-hmm.
Because people often take it multiple times, we want them to take it in their junior year, see how they do, see if there's enough time to take it again. A lot of international players don't hear about this process and then have to take tests in the fall of their senior year. That slows it down. It means the coaches may well have given spots away by that time and don't have the same number of spots. So it really helps if you're an international player to absolutely get your tests done.
Just one more question. I've always thought that to get a good education and tennis training, you have to look for the best coaches in the college tennis, not sort of just the ranking and all this sort of,
That's
the
absolutely
coaches, the names.
That's right.
Is it still correct then? And
Yes.
how do we?
Yes, I would say that like any business,
Yeah.
There are promoters, and there are great coaches. Some of the great coaches are not great promoters. So it's good for you to do your homework.
But if you don't know all this system, how do you solve it? Can you give us a recipe?
Well, you're asking the right questions, first of all, and asking in the same way that I would recruit a player. I'm going to ask not that player's coach, what does he like to coach, because that coach is being paid money. I don't know what the coach will tell me. I'm going to ask someone who has competed against him. Is he fair? Does he call lines well? Does he treat people with respect? Is he good? So I'm going to do my homework in the same way that students, and with help from their parents, but not doing the whole thing, students should find out, talk to other coaches, what's the reputation of that program. And you generally will hear, we sort of know where players develop and where they don't. And some players are really good at encouraging people to come, and they work hard and they'll provide opportunities. They may not be people who are dedicated to that player's development. They may hope to get someone and win a title. So we say let the buyer beware, is that you have to do the homework too.
But how can we get that sort of information? Where is
It's
the best places then?
It's not easy. It's not written in a book anywhere.
No?
It's,
That's why I'm
It's
asking you.
yeah, well, I'm trying to tell you.
Put it this way, I mean, we have between 15 and 20 players every year in universities, colleges in the United States. And most of the people going there, they have a connection in one other way. So if the coach in your club starts to talk to, Jørgen, working in federation, and you start there, you can probably find some connection already. So, so there are many, hundreds and hundreds of players been in the States the past 20 years.
Yeah, and there are a lot of good coaches. So I don't mean that you're trying to avoid the charlatans. There are many good coaches who are really dedicated. Once in a while you get a program that you have to be careful. If a player is not good enough, coaches will sometimes figure out a way to not renew the scholarship. So you want to be wise about choosing the right level where they can. I think they said that the statistics were if you don't start as a freshman in the top 6, only 15% of the time do you end up making the top 6 after that point. So sometimes players go and they're happy to wear the shirt of that college, and that's fine with them. But if they really want to keep developing, they need to be getting enough matches to continue to develop.
Dave, what we've done, just to check out the coaches, I coached college 30 years ago, I think. But what we've done at EuroLead is we've got all of our college kids. We have a list of them, where they are, where they were. And then when our new kids start coming up, we go through the list and we have them contact that person.
Terrific.
So that could be something Norway can do, Denmark can do. Get a list of all the college players that have played college and they're in college, and there's your resource.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And the players know what it's like, so they'll talk amongst themselves, they'll
Sure.
talk on Facebook. So that there are more ways. They say, whatever happened in Las Vegas lasts on Facebook now.
But it's all about the player too. Because I just had one player leave LSU because he and the coach didn't quite get along.
Yeah.
But then I have another player going to LSU now because he liked the coach.
Yes.
So it's individual.
We do a lot of, in our interviewing, spending time with people, we really do a lot of research, due diligence to see, would you be comfortable with me as a coach? What is it like when you get juniors, you get very attached to your junior coach. And one of the developmental issues that players have to do is when they've had one coach that is dedicated to them, and then I end up having 12 children. I care about them all, I can't treat them all the same. So they have to know they're coming into a fair environment. They can trust that. but they also have to learn often to communicate with a different person than their junior coach. And that's an act of growing for them. Is that when you're young, you tend to only hear the message when it's given in the way that you like. You get a little older, you start to listen to people who may not say something in a very kind way, but if it's got some truth to it, as you're more mature, you actually start to listen to it. Because I guess I did kind of act badly there. I didn't like to hear it, but you're right. And we should change our mind when we learn something.
Trying to figure out the balance between academics and the sport. How many weeks a year or weekends are your top 6 players traveling
Great.
that they miss academics?
The season, we're allowed to have a 24-week season. So we generally take 10 weeks in the fall, 14 weeks in the spring. Harvard's particular rule is that we can only miss 5 class days. A Friday would be a class day per term. There are 2 terms, fall and spring. So we can only miss a total of 10. If a person is succeeding on an individual basis and wants to get into the nationals or something that we don't take the team to, they can go as long as they're staying in good standing academically. So it actually is a good balance. I haven't had players have to quit because they couldn't maintain that balance. I've had people decide to stop playing because they weren't enjoying tennis anymore. But I haven't had it because they couldn't maintain that academic balance.
Is that a good rule of thumb for most universities?
Some universities will travel a lot more and miss a lot more. We really need to look at their schedule and say, what do they do? Just look at the last couple of years' schedule, and you'll see that some people, coaches really don't care. They want to win. Yeah.
How is your
Sorry.
relation?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How is your relation to all the different tennis academies around preparing players for college?
All of them are trying to prepare. Some of them are doing not as good a job academically. I think it's business, and the people who do it well are delivering really good value, and the people who are just using it as a business are getting kids to go to online schooling in order to keep their coaches working more. That's the reality of it. So parents are paying a lot of money to go to these academies, and some of them are they're money-making deals. So you really have to find where is someone really paying attention to my academic interests. When people are young, you only get one chance to develop your brain. It's nice to be developing your body, but they have a lot of time other than those 4 hours in a day to develop themselves. I had a music teacher one time said, Dave, have you ever noticed it's just athletics that use the excuse that they don't have time to be good students? A musician would never say that. And musicians often practice many more hours in a day than a tennis player. So we don't want to make things too easy for people, because I've had one player who went on the pro tour afterwards, and he was talking with a mother his first year. And the mother said, well, what's the big deal about going to Harvard? What did you learn? And I've never forgotten that he's going on to be the head of the WTA Tour and the COO of the men's tour. Now he's commissioner of the Pac-12. It's one of the big conferences in the United States. And he said, I never understood how much I was capable of handling until I got where I had a full plate and I had to learn to juggle things. He learned to juggle them successfully. If you make things too easy, people perform at that too easy level. So it's a happy balance to find. Does that answer your question?
So then you have some preferences of what academies that will perform better?
Not that I would say here. Everyone is different. I've had players go to academies. Some of the academies, it's really a roll out the balls. It's a factory. Other academies, the coach is in there, he's sweating and dying with them and giving them great value and teaching them really good character skills along the way, insisting on those things. So again, like the question about coaches, you have to look at coaches. You choose your doctor well, wouldn't you? You want to choose your coaches well. whether they're in college or whether they're junior coaches, academy coaches. And that's not as simple as looking it up on the internet. Takes homework. Did I miss the question from?
No, I was just wondering, what kind of coaching resources do you have in your program? I'm just a bit curious.
Sure, great question. We have some marvelous resources. Jez Green, who was Andy Murray's trainer for 8 years, is a consultant in our program, comes in twice a year and instructs our players and then stays in touch with our physical training program. We want our players to be developing at a world-class level so that should their talent be high enough, they haven't missed anything in 4 years to get ready for it.
Physical side.
Physical
Right,
side.
right.
Eric Buderak, Eric was the finalist in the Australian Open 2 years ago. He's retiring and now becoming Director of Player Relations at the USTA, at the US Open. He was our volunteer coach for 3 years. One of the best, finest doubles coaches you'll find in the world. He loved working with our guys, so he came out and he volunteered his time to do it. Lorenzo Beltrame worked with Jim Lair, one of the most famous sports psychologists in the world in tennis. Has worked with all the top players. Lorenzo is his second in command and is coming in to do work with our players on their sports psychology training. So we have, how many of you heard of this smart court called PlaySight? PlaySight is a computerized court, 8 cameras on it. We have a court fitted out with 8 cameras, and you can literally see what spin you're getting on the ball, how many steps you're running, every point. See the speed of your serve, how high it goes over the net, how many backhand down the lines you missed on break point. It's a pretty good resource. Djokovic is an investor in it. It works. And they've got conditions built. You can set up it'll monitor where your shots are landing in a practice situation, and our players come out and say, I'm working twice as hard because the machine is telling me I'm failing at this. So I keep going and I keep going and keep going. If I'm just practicing with someone else, they sort of don't pay the same attention to errors. So we've got a lot of resources. Harvard says, look, we want to find people who belong here academically, but we don't want them to miss anything else that they really need to develop forward. You guys are awfully patient with this. I'm sure you have better things to do.
How big is your team?
We keep about 12 to 13.
You have a JV and a varsity?
I don't call it a JV because the guys lower down the team work just as hard. So we eliminated the name JV long ago.
But they don't have a JV tournament or?
Nope.
No?
We get them into tournaments in the fall. We will try to have all 12 or 13 playing each weekend that we're competing. Sending some to an event here, some to an event here, we're running all the same event. In the springtime, when we have a varsity match for the top 6 or 7, we'll often do what's called a double header. We'll have another team that is a little weaker and get our other guys to play so that everybody keeps playing. We want them to develop. It's painful for me as a coach to see anyone in my program not competing and getting the level of competition that he needs.
Do the females play with the males?
Not often. They do it more informally. We alternate practice times, so it can happen, and it has happened, but it's not a formal arrangement. And it's not that it's not discouraged. But
No mixed doubles?
we haven't yet. Billie Jean King is actually trying to get us to experiment in the World Team Tennis format, which would be kind of fun. Yes?
Maybe a stupid question, but what sort of education can I get at the college? All sort of education, economics, doctors, everything, when they do this college tennis. They can study everything.
Again, in our program, people can study anything.
Yeah.
I haven't had someone go into architecture. Architecture seems to have so much lab work that I think that someone would be smarter to go somewhere else where they could manage it, or perhaps a Division III. But medicine, engineering. Now, at other colleges, you have to know that there's some coaches who simply say, I don't want you to take a class that interferes in any way with our practice. And if they're getting a scholarship, they're gonna kind of say, this is what I expect of you. So we can't operate that way, but some other coaches do. So again, you have to do your homework.
Okay. We talked about approximately 20 players that are there now. You know, we talked about it a little bit earlier, and you know, the possibility of, you know, if we are getting into this system to get more players into the
Yes.
system, that do you think that's normally what's going to happen?
I do. I think the countries that, Tennis Canada was the first group to get involved in this because they saw, one is they're close. They saw what a huge advantage it was for their players to get into the American system. I mean, the level of training and competition is remarkable. And you've got coaches taking them around and physical training. You have a whole palette of things that make it easier. So I think that the smart countries are going to jump on this and see how fast they can have all their players reliably rated. And I think down the road, they're also going to find out how they can stimulate tennis growth in their own countries with more players reliably rated. I think more players are going to find out how much fun it is to keep trying in tennis. I think we lose too many people because they get discouraged. They say, well, I'm not going to be a pro. Those character issues that I talked about, those are not available only if you get to be a pro. They're available to anybody who puts in the work. That's the price of admission for greatness, but it doesn't, if you're not great, you can still become a championship human being. And dealing with the frustration and the long hours of tennis, it's worth it, I promise you. Companies in the United States certainly love to hire former athletes. They know that they've gone through a lot more discipline, training, hardship, and mostly, and most important, they've learned to fail. When you get young people that haven't learned to fail, they shy away from conflict, they shy away from challenges. Tennis players can't. You guys are going in one of the toughest sports there is. It's going to throw you to the mat 1,000 times. But as any boxer knows, it's not when you get knocked onto the mat, it's how fast you get up. Tennis players have to get up within 25 seconds. It's inspiring when you see the guys do it. So, and that can happen with a 12-year-old that isn't a good player. But if they learn those skills, they will have learned a valuable trait. They will take something away from tennis that will last a lifetime. Anyway, you guys are great. Thank you very much. That's fun to have.
Okay, thank you for coming, everyone. I'll see you next week.
Joel.
Thank you.